And it's going. Hey, everybody. Welcome to our inaugural, very first live stream here with non-technical live stream, because I've done some live streams where I've done certifications, but this is going to be a new series. So this is the new of Jim, myself, maybe other folks from the release team. We're going to get together and just have a good time, have a good conversation about important topics in our ecosystem. With release team, we're a DevOps shop, and so that covers a wealth of different domains and technologies and applications, and just way too many words to mention, right? But it's a very, very, very big space. So Jim and I, we're going to kind of dissect some of the items that are important to us, and we're kicking things off with, is DevOps dead? Because release team, the tagline is your DevOps specialists, right? And so it kind of puts you in a interesting spot of, is it time to pivot? Is there still a future? What does DevOps look like, especially with vibe coding and this acceleration of AI? And so Jim and I were going to kind of just hang out and talk for maybe an hour or so, and kind of just give you all our opinions and build some thought leadership around the topics that we're going to be talking about. So if any of this is all interesting to you all, make sure you hit the subscribe button, drop a like, share with your colleagues. And Jim, why don't you kick us off with maybe a little intro about who you are, what you do, and why this is important to you?
Well, I'm a DevOps consultant for release team, so I sure hope DevOps isn't dead.
Otherwise, we're all looking for a new job, right?
Yeah, exactly. I've got a background in a fair amount of automation engineering, stemming really from cybersecurity, dating back to, call it the late 90s, early 2000s. I've been doing that on and off, but have come back just to DevOps and automation engineering because I got a little tired of being responsible for cyber.
I started off with I had a CS degree, and I quickly realized that I couldn't make it. I don't know if you can see it here, but all my C++ books, Java books, they're all lingering in this area. And then all my cybersecurity books are right over here on this side. And
mine are blurred out, but mine are back here.
Yeah, you got a good list there too. Yeah, it's amazing. One day I just want to kind of sit through them and see what's still relevant in 2026.
Yeah, I've noticed that some of mine are real dated, but some of them hold up really well.
Yeah, the one that
skills are skills, right?
Yeah, definitely. The collection that I've always wanted to get my hands on is like that clean code book that was going around in the like mid 2010s. I don't know if you ever read that one or saw it. There was a big book called Clean Code that was like, it was all the rage. Everybody who was writing software knew about it, or had heard about it, or was reading it. And we have
I don't have my copy on the shelf.
Oh, you do have what you're talking about? Okay, yeah.
I think I do, yeah.
But then I also have like XNA. Did you ever hear of XNA?
No.
So Microsoft,
or maybe I'm just not remembering.
It's a Microsoft technology. It was kind of like a framework / it was more like a framework. It's how you used to develop Xbox applications for the Xbox 360. And my favorite thing was XNA stood for XNA is not an acronym. So the X in XNA is the XNA thing, and then not an acronym. But yeah, I have a book on that, but Microsoft killed off XNA, and I'm like, wonder what I could do with this book, given that the technology doesn't exist anymore. But anyways, again, we're here to talk.
It probably belongs in a museum.
At that point, maybe, along with the other 10, 15 Xboxes that I have a lot of Xbox 360s. But Jim, let's focus in on the topic, right, of DevOps. Is it dead? Is it evolving? Is it shifting? What are your thoughts? Where do you think we are? How do you think we got here? And where do you think we're going?
I think we're just seeing a natural cycle in technology, not just software development, but a natural cycle in technology where things become decentralized and then more centralized. And the people who would say that DevOps is a dying skill set, I think those are people who are advocating for centralizing the CI/CD pipelines, to put it
And
simply.
let's double tap into that. What do you mean by centralized?
Organize into one group of experts who are responsible for deployment and builds and, the CI/CD pipelines.
But wasn't that the premise or the idea of DevOps when it first came out? Like your developer does the dev and the ops part, like instead of having multiple people do.
Right.
So are we coming full circle?
No.
No?
As I experienced it over the years, there used to be centralized teams of system administrators. And then as applications became more diverse and more complex, and we can talk about that in a second, those system administrators couldn't keep up with the technological diversity across all of these development groups. So the push became, well, you built it, you run it, because I don't want to get woken up at 3 a.m. to have someone ask me, why isn't this program you've never heard of and never worked on not working?
Right.
As a system administrator, I wouldn't want that. Whereas the developer of the thing might have a better shot, and they would just be the escalation point for a system administrator anyway. So I think we might just be looking at the terminology from two different perspectives here.
It's an interesting take, yeah, because to me, like, I kind of empathize a little bit with that original spirit, right? Well, here's my observations. Let me pivot and go this way, right? So AI is rapidly accelerating your software development cycle. At least the coding part, right? The coding part is the one that used to take the longest because it was the hardest to figure out. But now
that's what they tell us. Yes.
Yeah, that's what they tell. Well, I've witnessed it. Sean and I, the CR release team here, we've been vibe coding for the last month and a half. And just on Friday, we got together for the better part of 60, 70 minutes, and we brought to life a decent proof of concept for something we wanted to build. Granted, it wasn't like an enterprise application. It wasn't anything that we were going to be, any world hunger with, but a decent proof of concept of an application. And
I've done the same.
Right. But that timeline, right, for AI with respect to the coding part of the timeline gets compressed significantly with AI to a certain degree, right? I think if you're scaling an enterprise application, I think it's a little bit of a smoking gun, but still, nonetheless, just a little bit. For simpler applications, I think it's a good option, right? But I still wouldn't, I wouldn't condone it, or I wouldn't like put all my eggs in that basket either, if I was like the CEO of a software development company. But anyways, what I'm trying to get to, right, is that the software part, I think whether we agree whether AI makes it faster or not faster, what we can agree is that AI influences the code development a lot more. Would you agree? Okay. But what I'm not seeing today is like, okay, so now we have all this code. It's a lot easier to manufacture it, to produce it, to create it. But then what happens? Like, you still got to get this stuff out there. Like, the customer still got to, like, it's really great at creating these POCs, but get a software that's compliant, that is secure, that is not going to break your architecture, that's not going to break your infrastructure. Like, those are still steps that DevOps, I think, still plays a critical role in. What are your thoughts there?
I absolutely agree. I'm not sure how I couldn't.
We're done. Thank you all.
Yeah, hey, right on. Okay. Solve world hunger. No, it's a question of who's doing the work. DevOps is the other side of the coin from platform engineering, I suppose, where a team, we'll call them platform engineers. I think some companies call them site reliability engineers. It doesn't really, they all do the same thing. If you're in a position where all you have to do is stand up a Docker container and attach it to an IP address and, wire in some DNS or what have you, then yay, good, do that. And then the distinction is very clear, right? You've got your platform people running your Kubernetes or your Docker swarms or whatever, and you've got your developers who just know, I throw this CI/CD template at it, and the pipeline deploys, and as far as they're concerned, it's magic.
Right.
And that's great.
Do you
And I've never worked anywhere that is so uniform.
do you
The
think?
moment
Go ahead.
that you acquire another company, all that goes out the window
Yeah.
because all of their deployment is different. Product management is never going to want to invest the money to migrate to the existing platform because it doesn't add immediate customer value. So
Yeah.
as soon as your platform diverges, you've just made your problem just that much more difficult.
Yeah, I worked in two organizations where their entire CI/CD or their SDLC, I'm going to even abstract that to the whole software development lifecycle, was just a house of cards.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I would challenge them like, "Hey, Jira," because I'm known as Dr. Jira on the internet. And I spend a lot of time in the Jira world. I'm like, Jira can really help us here if we do this, if we do it that way. And they're like, no, that requires us to re-architect the entire way we check in code, the way we deploy our code, like all of that stuff. Like we would have to re-architect the whole thing, because in both of these scenarios, we had non-engineer, non-trained folk stand up some sort of an infrastructure and then just pray that it stayed together.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I just kind of just did the offering, and they did what they needed to do, and things didn't break. And if it ain't broke, don't touch it.
Yeah, I think the better, I won't say best, but the better solution is have your platform as nailed down as you can get it, but as flexible as you can get it. So take your AWS account or accounts, put in effective guardrails around cost control and access controls and all that, and then tell the individual groups to go to town.
Mm-hmm. Now,
Yeah,
do you think, have you've seen obviously how vibe coding has been impacting the software world? You mentioned you dabbled with it. I personally haven't seen it. I'm just kind of curious if you've seen it in your channels or wherever you spend your time on the interwebs. But do you think, or have you seen the same thing happening with the pipeline part of it? Like, can you just tell AI push this to prod and it'll build a S3 bucket? It'll get the EC2. Like, is that happening? Do you see any of that? You anticipate it to happen if it hasn't happened yet?
I have not seen that yet, not to any scale. In my own vibe coding, I tell my agent, for lack of a better term, I guess that is the right one. I tell my agent, do all your builds and tests and all that in a Docker container, because I don't want to clutter up my machine with 1 million compilers and 2 million libraries and that kind of thing.
That's what I'm afraid of. When I'm doing my anti-gravity on my computer, I was like, oh man, I almost don't even touch it, because I'm like, I don't even know what processes are still running on this computer, and I never shut down my computer. But that's probably smart. But that's that kind of
so I have everything done in Docker. So that kind of, I tell the agent to do it in Docker and it does it in Docker. That doesn't mean anything over in the production world, other than I know it can run in a container that is fairly well defined. I know what the runtime requirements are because I built the container during development, which I think is exactly the point of containerization anyway.
Right. But it's still just a small piece of the puzzle. Like there's a whole QA part of it. There's a whole UAT part of it.
I've never seen anyone vibe code like a GitLab pipeline. Not ever. And it could be done. I have the feeling it could be done. I've played around a little with using, I don't even remember which one of the models, to translate GitHub to GitLab pipeline definitions to support customer migrations and such. And it worked pretty well, but all of the exact steps and exact technology were all defined within the GitHub definition. It was mostly just reformatting. As opposed to doing it from greenfield, that's I've never seen it done, but I think it could be. And I think that it would probably produce something pretty good.
Yeah, but do you think it needs to be then? Because my perspective is that I have my uncles vibe coding stuff, right? They've been wanting to build an application. They can't afford $50,000 development fee. I introduced them to Cloud Code, and they're like, wow, this is life changing. So now my uncle's like over here just like bringing ideas that he's had for the last 50 years to life. But then the rest of it doesn't scale, right? Like I'm a little worried about that second half of the process. It's not just the development part.
Yeah. Well, I think given the right prompting, I think given the right prompting and some understanding of best practices by whoever writes that prompt. And I know there are open source prompt repositories out there that I haven't even scratched the surface of, because there's tens of thousands of prompts that people have written. I can't speak to the quality of any of them, obviously.
Well, you're telling me
But
that
I think with the right prompting,
like, there's a repository of prompts that people can just go and use that are like better written. Huh? I didn't even know that.
Oh, I don't know about that, but there are repositories of prompts that people can go use. I don't have the URL off the top of my head, or I'd give it to you. What I find when I'm vibe coding, and I think this is going to be true of CI/CD as well, is it works better the more specific you can be about how to implement the solution.
Yeah.
So if you
have insight,
it does, but it doesn't require you necessarily to have skill. So where I use vibe coding the most is if I'm faced with solving a problem in a language that I don't know. Like, this problem has to be solved using JavaScript. Okay, TypeScript, which I don't know either. It needs to be solved using Rust, which I can spell, but that's about as far as I've dived into Rust. I can write me some pretty good Python, but when it comes to Rust, no. But if I tell a model or an agent, hey, here's your design spec, use these technologies, use these techniques, implement this in Rust, whatever, it's pretty effective. And I've had success doing that with Java. I've had success doing that with Go, which I can read, but I can't write.
Yeah.
I've had some success with doing that with Python, but I'd kind of rather roll my own Python just to keep my mind active, just as I enjoy it.
Do you think AI then is going to make us dumber, or do you think it'll make us smarter?
I think AI is a tool.
And
I think the agents are going to become more specialized. And I think that most of the processing for those specialized agents is going to happen out at the edge once we can afford machines with RAM in them again.
Ain't that the truth? That Apple just dropped their newest Macs, and those things are expensive.
Yeah, well, anything with RAM in it, and storage too. Anything with RAM and storage is just expensive right now, and that sucks. And well, here we are. Now the frontier models, your big foundational LLMs and the really conceptually heavyweight models, those are going to live in the cloud. And then we have these models. I saw recently, I think it was Facebook released a
Llama, right? They're Open Llama or Llama.
Ollama. Well, Ollama's not their model. It's more like a framework, but they released a model that was intended just to route requests to various models. It's an open source thing. I think it was Facebook. And I thought that was pretty cool, as opposed to burdening, pick your model, right? Pick any other model, and burdening a more general purpose model with that task. Give it to a relatively small model with a few 100 million parameters, and there you go. So that you can run your tokens, you spend your tokens in the cloud when you need that kind of horsepower. But then if all you need is something written up in TypeScript in a half an hour, you're probably not going to need that.
Yeah.
Problem is, right now, if you look at GitLab, for example, just because Sean and I recently did a pricing exercise, if you want to run Duo in your own self-hosted stuff, you're looking at a pretty expensive NVIDIA card to do it. For a company, $10,000 isn't a lot of money, but for people like you and me, that's
right. But most
that's used car money. That's
yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I've stood out a enterprise server for like $500,000, and that was on the cheap.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And
yeah, for companies find ways to spend $500,000 when they're ending the year, their fiscal years, and they haven't spent that money.
yeah. But these NVIDIA GPUs are, they're popular for a lot of things. We were recently working on a project with a scientific partner that was using it for real-time image analysis of a stream that I really
Yeah.
probably shouldn't say much more than that. But
I was at the Scale conference, the DevOps conference that happens in Pasadena, that Sean
okay.
attends every year. And we're hanging out at the Meta or the Facebook booth, and they got a couple of H100s just sitting there. And I tell myself, I'm like, that's like gold right there, and they're just unattended, they're just sitting there. And my son's like, why would they do that? I'm like, I don't know.
You assume what was sitting there worked. Those could have
Yeah,
been.
that's also true. That is also very, very true.
I mean, they run them through QA like everyone else, I hope, but I'm sure they do.
Yeah, I'm in the market to try to
like
get
that at conferences.
Yeah, I'm trying to get an old GTX graphics card right now, 1060. And in fact, I better check up on how I'm doing with that bid. But you got to be careful with those cards because those were the heydays of at-home mining, and those things got through the gauntlet, right? Like those cards were used, they were abused. And
they were exposed to some heat. Yeah, they were exposed to some heating and cooling cycles in their life.
Right. So
yeah,
we'll see if I win this card. I got 19 hours left before when it's a $46 card that I'm trying not to spend too much money on. But yeah. Anyway, so let's transition a little bit here. And I kind of want to go. I want to go in the way of, do you think, going back to GitLab as a topic here, do you think that GitLab, your GitHubs, do you think that it's in their best interest to make agents that other companies can incorporate to their like SDLC so that that pipeline becomes automated, or the rest of their DevOps cycles become automated? I don't know if I'm explaining it correctly.
No, you are. And I think it is absolutely to their advantage because as experts, as GitLab and GitHub people are, they're gonna understand what language they need to prompt the models with in order to get the best results.
With that said, right?
I mean, for example, I suppose, for example, you can say, I'm supporting 3 different branching strategies because my software factory supports 5 different companies. And we can't just use one pipeline design because we're not going to be migrating. It's not even appropriate to migrate company A's small tool-focused development shop over to company B's large web service.
Right.
And put those on the same pipeline. So to be able to have equivalent but not identical pipelines in terms of compliance, in terms of security scanning, in terms of package manifests, pick your poison.
Right.
Secret detection, that's always a classic. Then, yeah, I think those pipelines would be extremely advantageous, if only to create drafts that then an expert engineer can save himself the 2 hours that it would have taken to draft the thing to begin with.
But that draws a line in the sand to a certain degree, right? Because one, there's 2 paths here that I can think of. Number one is, will AI at some point replace the DevOps engineer, because then it can all just happen autonomously? But 2, how does a junior DevOps person become a senior expert DevOps engineer, given that they've relied so much on AI to do the work for them? Are we in a catch-22?
Well, it depends. I mean, if they relied on AI to do the work for them and haven't looked at the output at all and haven't been intellectually curious to go find out what it's doing, then no, they're not going to advance. They're gonna be disappointed. But if they use the tools in a way that says, okay, create this for me, and then they go look at what it does and says, I don't really think that's the best approach. Either it's factually incorrect because the thing hallucinated something, which happens, or the AI is made an assumption when it wrote this that is incorrect because I didn't prompt it sufficiently. You can either go back and update your prompt, or you can just correct it on the fly, depending on your environment and what you want to do.
But
And having that intellectual curiosity, I think, is what's going to advance someone from the beginning of an IT career to the end of an IT career.
So
and if you can't tell from my hair, I'm a lot closer to the end than I am the beginning. But I've always been curious. I've always been interested in looking. That's kind of partially what drew me to security, is that you get to see how things break. And that's interesting to people like me, I guess.
Yeah. I've really enjoyed security, and it's always a game of cat and mouse. And one of my observations has been like, there's hesitation. I see a lot of companies hesitate to implement and roll out AI. I work with a lot of the teams that we work with, release team, right? They're regulated industries, regulated, right? It's just, there's a lot of rules, a lot of hoops you got to jump through. And I personally have witnessed a lot of hesitation with some companies about their AI policy. If they do lean towards AI, it's a very, very minor lean, right? They're not fully leaned into AI, and they're rolling it out as little as they need to, and it's very controlled.
Yeah, I haven't seen a single client for some time that has really bought into the AI, even to the extent that you and I probably have more time vibe coding than most of my clients.
Yeah. No, I was actually having a conversation with another buddy of mine, and we were chatting. We were having a conversation about. I asked him. Well, we're having a conversation about vibe coding, right? He's like, he's a non-developer, and he is aggressively, and I mean hyper aggressively, leveraging the full power of AI. I mean, this guy's investing hundreds and hundreds of dollars, and not thousands of dollars a month, into AI. And he has essentially automated himself out of having to live at this point. Like, whenever I'm talking to him, I'm questioning whether I'm talking to him or if I'm talking to his assistant AI agent, because he's gone a little lean too heavy into the AI side, right? And we were talking, and I was, because we talk a lot about Agile, and him and I are almost at opposite ends on how to use Jira, how to use the Atlassian tools for software development. And he's of the opinion that, like, well, you should be able to just write code and do it all, and like it all happens instantaneously. So what's the point of estimating stories, and what's the point of doing sprint planning when you can just like write code immediately, right? You're snapping fingers and you have code written, right? Because this is what he's doing, and he's building these applications. And I'm like, well, it's funny that you say that, but I'm like, none of the teams that I work with are using AI to write code. And he's like, no. He almost had like I felt like his heart beat it a little bit, right? I'm like, well, let me rephrase. Like, I feel like they're using AI, but that stuff's not making it into prod. And so he was just having a hard time understanding how anybody's writing code these days without vibe coding your way through. But I'm like, there's people that are they're doing it the old school way, man. What do you think about that?
Let me. Okay, I think your friend is having a good time. I think he's enjoying himself, and I'm glad for him. Here's the thing. So I'm not using AI to write anything particularly large. And, tens of thousands of lines of code, not millions. Certainly not tens of millions.
Well, that's still even higher than me, because I'm in the thousands still.
Okay. Well, it doesn't matter. It's not a competition. But so one of the things I'm working on specifically runs on a Raspberry Pi, because you can take an HDMI cable and attach pin 13 to a GPIO pin on a Raspberry Pi and have it monitor CEC messages, Consumer Electronic Control part of HDMI.
I like how you break that one down, but not GPIO, general purpose input output, right? Just
GPIO. Sorry,
no worries.
I'm trying not to speak too much.
I just found it funny that you broke one acronym down, but not the other. You'll learn to work with me, Jim. I am my sense of humor is different.
It's all good. But So originally it was a Python script. I wanted to create a state machine that wrapped around the Linux tools for monitoring CEC, and I eventually decided, this has too many dependencies, so I vibe coded the entire solution in C++. And that it works. It works pretty well. I found a nice library to do the UI, so it if the terminal is a certain size, it'll display as much detail as it can and that kind of thing. It's no GUI or anything like that. Because really, Raspberry Pi, I know they can run GUIs, but they're a little slow. So here's the problem I have. Okay, so I have a state machine that I told Claude, implement the state machine according to the CEC spec. And it said, okay, here you go. Well, how do I know it's right? I don't have the slightest clue it's right. And that's kind of the point I'm getting at with using AI for pipelines is, how do you know it's correct? How do you know it's complete? You don't. How
Right.
you don't. You either trust it or you have to go verify it. And in order to verify it, you have to have
a little bit of
certain
insight,
degree of expertise. You have to develop a certain degree of expertise, and you have to be curious enough to do so. And that's
I mean, it's
that's
important,
where
right?
I see it.
That's and that's kind of where the struggle that I think the general theme of today has been, right? Like, I don't feel like Sean and I have talked about this maybe a year ago when we started the DevOps Roundup, which is a sister podcast that we have to here, Release Team. It's a new thing that we're doing here with Release Team, right? But you don't go to a university and learn how to become a DevOps engineer.
No,
I never once.
I'm not aware of any degree programs anyway.
Right. So this is an on-the-job training kind of thing that you learn.
Yes. And
it's not I mean, it's easier. I would say 10 years or 3 years ago, before Claude took over and Jippity and all the other tools took over, right? Like, coding was the hard part. The DevOps is what you did when you couldn't code, right? It's the reason why I became a scripter, is because I couldn't figure out the whole abstraction and garbage overload and operator overload and your garbage collector operator overload, like that. All that stuff in C++ went right over my head. Also didn't help that my professor was like 85 years old and was coding in Fortran. But anyways,
well, that's a problem with colleges. I took an object-oriented programming class that was supposed to be at a high level, and the instructor was good at object-oriented programming and was bad at teaching it, and yet I still paid my tuition. So I guess, here we are.
For a period of like 2 weeks, Clay Hortzman was my instructor, and he wrote the book on Java. So that was an interesting.
And he was probably better than your 85-year-old Fortran programmer.
Yeah.
Defining pipelines isn't coding as such, but I mean, there are skills that translate. The rules in a GitLab pipeline to determine if a job is going to run are Boolean algebra.
Right.
And you have to be able to interpret, did I write this rule correctly? Or maybe more importantly, did the agent write this rule correctly? So that the truth table of this Boolean expression is what I expect it to be.
You know what I would really like? I think what I really enjoy having AI today as a DevOps person would be just funneling in all the error logs, going, what's wrong with this? Why isn't this working? And it's having it.
I enjoy that too.
Forgot to do this, because holy moly, like my time. Hold up, my time with Stack Overflow on just putting in every error that I've ever gotten from an error log from any tool that I ever used, and then trying to figure it out. Like, I spent so much time in TeamCity. TeamCity and Jenkins were two tools that I could not master at all. But here we are.
There was a thing.
There's always a thing.
Yeah, there was. Back in the early days of RDS Aurora on AWS, which is their serverless database, we tried to migrate to it because we tried to migrate one particular product to it because other products had been really successful. And the error message that ended up tanking the migration, and we just went back to normal RDS, existed in exactly one other place on the internet. It's like if you searched for that string, it's like Stack Overflow, never heard of it, right? There was like someone posted a log somewhere that had this particular error message in it, and there was no context and no resolution. And
that's
if you
when
ask support,
that's when you knew you were going to stay up the whole night figuring this out.
Yeah, if you asked AWS support, they're like, let's get back to you from the engineers because we sure don't know. Yeah, good old Google engineering there. But
yeah, I remember physically going to Google's campus in 2009 and walking around just, in amazement of Google. I think that was like peak Google back then. And I remember talking to those engineers and I'm like, I can't do my homework without Googling how to do a, Java program or whatever. How the heck do you guys invent this thing? You can't Google. Like, it has always blown my mind how people invent something out of nothing without the ability to Google it.
Oh, I don't know.
It's just,
I've always felt, and I use Steve Jobs as an example of this, but he's by no means the only one. I've always felt that successful programs and code and that kind of thing are the result of people with good taste. Steve Jobs was very, very particular about the products that Apple released when he was alive, and especially the software that they released. And before Apple, it was Next Compute, which was eye-wateringly expensive, but really innovative for its time. I mean, the display driver was literally PostScript. So, what was on your screen was precisely what was going to come out of the printer because it was defined in the same language.
Mm-hmm.
I think because he had really good taste, that was reflected in the products that his company produced, because his sense of aesthetic, his sense of taste, his sense of style all kind of filtered down. And you see it in code. If you have some slob programmer, then the code is going to be slovenly. And if you have a programmer who's interested in writing beautiful code, then the code is going to be beautiful. And the same goes for any technology. People who are going to produce a beautiful solution are going to produce a beautiful solution regardless of the tools.
And I think this is why we can answer our question of, is DevOps dead? I think it's far from it, right? Because the DevOps part is such an art too, right? There's a way to do things correctly. There's a way to do things where you're going to shoot yourself in the foot. There's a way to build it where you're not using enough duct tape, right? And again, I personally have lived through it. I've worked in organizations where it's just a house of cards. Just they're one little thing from, if you don't do it the way they say that you have to do it and follow those steps to the T, something is bad is going to happen.
The bigger problem I see with organizations is that they don't have their basics down. They don't have system logs.
Yeah, I was going to say,
they don't have system logs aggregated, like your pipeline build logs. If they're not aggregated, if they're not being monitored, what good are they to you? Mm-hmm. And they're taking up disk space at that point. And these are table stakes for a company. If I'm going to hand something off to support, I'd better hand off a supportable product to them. And that's going to involve things like knowing where my users are instantiated. If the user's account is defined on that Linux box over there, that's not good enough. The user's account has to be defined at least quasi-centrally to the product.
You're bringing up a really good point here, though, right? Because when I was in the software space, your engineers created the thing, right? Your software engineers created the thing. Mm-hmm. Your DevOps person is, supporting the rest of the life cycle of it. But you always could somewhat rely and go back to your engineer and ask questions, right? Even your testers, your QA, you can kind of always go back to your engineer, because they handcrafted that thing. They had more intimate knowledge of how the behavior was supposed to be, where things were, why things worked, right? But now that you're vibe coding so much of it and you're massively producing so much of it, I don't think, like, if I asked Sean, like, some applications that we've been vibe coding together, I don't think he'd be able to tell me as intimately or as easily. I bet you what he would do is he would just ask Claude, like, well, tell me where this is at, or tell me why this is happening. I don't know that that's any better. I don't know. I feel like I'm in a standstill.
I think you're right. I think having that kind of intimate knowledge of the system is really important. And I think having a pride in the implementation of that part of the system and having the good taste to make a beautiful solution, I think is important.
I think that's going to be a commoditized art. I don't think we're trending in the direction where you can appreciate that.
I would like to think so, but I don't know that that's something you can learn through anything except experience. I mean, certain people will be able to understand it more easily, and be more opinionated and be more, frankly, correct. But that's going to come from experience, and it's going to come from mentorship from seniors.
So what advice would you have to a senior in high school trying to start a career in engineering? And the boss joined.
Oh, hey, Sean.
Hey.
The advice I would have for a senior in high school who is trying to do anything in IT is run.
In the, like, towards it or away from it?
Away from it.
Away from it.
And if that advice is not persuasive to them, then maybe they're suited for IT. But but IT is
it's a painful career.
I'm sorry?
It's a painful career, emotionally painful career.
It definitely has become that, yes.
Yeah, it's become difficult for a lot of reasons. And it depends which sector you work in to a point. If you're working in a regulated environment like, defense, off the top of my head, you're going to be buried in paperwork.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I always find it funny. We had interns come in as software engineers from, like, Carnegie Mellon, MIT, Harvard. And they're like, all right, I'm here to write code. And I'm like, dude, you'll be
no, you're not.
You'll be lucky if you get. I had an intern. She waited. She had a 12-week internship. Her manager dropped the ball on getting her clearance paperwork processed. She waited 11 weeks and like 4 days to get that clearance, and it came that last day of her internship. She ran into that lab so quickly, and I remember her expression. She walked in, she's like, "This is what you guys doing here all day? Like, this is what I waited the whole summer for." She was so happy her internship was over.
Here's a funny thing: is that you listen to people from Google or people from
Netflix.
Oh yeah, Netflix loves to tell you how
Etsy,
how awesome they are. Yeah. And maybe they are awesome. I've never worked for Google or Netflix, but you and I, we're not Google or Netflix. They do things at scale that we can't even comprehend. I mean,
yeah,
there was I think it was the last Prime Day, may have been the one before that. In my world, a lot of traffic is 2 million requests a second. In AWS's world, the IAM service alone is like, hold my beer. Let me see if I can find.
Yeah, I'm working right now with a team where they're doing API rate. They're hitting Atlassian API rate limits. And like, you got to imagine that Atlassian did some research at one point and figured out what's a good rate limit that 95% of our customers aren't going to hit. And then they must have settled on that number. And then all of a sudden comes this new company and they're like, we do that by lunch, guys.
Yeah. So just looking online real quick, apparently Prime Day DynamoDB was peaking at 151 million requests per second. In my world, 2 is huge.
Yeah.
Right. Their simple queuing service, SQS, 166 million requests a second. Again, 2. And IAM, when those metrics were published, the IAM team was like, "Oh, hold our beer," because it was it was a lot more. It was like another order of magnitude more. And yeah, cool. Google does all the amazing things. Google's doing all the high performance things. Google's doing all the awesome things. And the executives of whatever company I'm working for at the time, they might want to do all those awesome things too. But the truth of the matter is you run your entire flagship product off of 30 EC2 instances.
Yeah, but what happens when your flagship product was entirely vibe coded?
Well, you just vibe code it to do more. Yeah.
I don't work for that company anymore. I work for Sean now.
So
thank you, Sean. I appreciate that.
Prompt. Yeah. We're anticipating an incredible increase in our customer base. Increase our throughput to be 100 million times more. And see what vibe code does.
Yeah. Given the kind of things that Netflix does, I mean, granted, totally different space, right? But given the kind of things that Netflix does, I don't think vibe coding is 100% of their solution. I really don't. I think they have to have smart, clever people who know how to
I believe that. I 100% believe that. But at the same time, you have Dario from Anthropic saying 95% of our code base is only been by AI.
Good for him. I don't know. I can't speak to their code base. I don't know what they've written in AI.
Yeah.
I don't know if they find the AI satisfactory.
But now you got like your CTOs kind of taking a step back and going like, where do we go, guys? Like token cost is too much, development cost is too much.
Yeah,
but Dario at Anthropic, he has Anthropic at his disposal. Yeah. He can run a model for the next 2 weeks to generate something amazing, and it doesn't. He gets the homeboy discount, right?
Well, he did that. He basically pointed his tool at its own tool and said, "Rewrite this for us for the future." And his lead developers and the CTO hated it. But it rewrote it from whatever language that it was in, and I don't remember what the old language was. It was more of like an assembly language that I hadn't heard of, into a newfangled. I think it was Rust that he rewrote it into. I can't remember.
We talked about Rust today.
It was Rust, yeah,
a little bit.
And it took a couple weeks for it to do it, and God knows how many millions of dollars in tokens.
Right.
But it completed it. And they're in love with it, although the technical people that built version 1 hate the new code base, mainly because they don't understand it.
Because they didn't write it,
yeah.
And that's going back to a conversation we were having, right? Like now, if you have problems with your CI/CD pipelines, who do you ask? Now, if you have QA problems, who do you ask? Because it used to be that you can go back to the engineer, and they were like, well, let me show you.
Boy,
this is what happened.
QA is a whole nother bag of worms too. Because bag of worms, can of worms. I'm part of the CIA. I'm working for the CIA's elite mixed metaphor division these days. I have never worked for a company that had enough testers. True. QA has always gotten the short end of the budget.
If they don't get the people, then they don't get the time. And they can't test anything, appropriately, and then it gets shipped out to the customer to deal with. I see that happening more and more with AI.
Yeah, that's why you just run a smoke test, right? Just do quick and dirty, make sure no smoke comes out.
Oh, my pipelines that I write for my AI tools that I've been vibe coding, I force it to go through a GitLab CI pipeline. But I also forced a feedback loop saying, you need to fix your own pipelines until they're green. So my pipeline goes red, I never touch it. And it may go through 3 or 4 iterations of the AI tool trying to figure out how to fix the pipeline, but ultimately the pipeline goes green and more vibe coding goes through. And I never troubleshoot it.
I've found that AI agents are very good at writing unit tests. But one of my good friends would disagree with that because he has had unit tests, even in the comments, say, I'm going to lie about this test passing. And then it does, right? It just return true.
I have seen that, and I've had to write guardrails around that, and it obeys the guardrails 3/4 of the time. but then you just have to write other catches to catch it when it's lying, and then hope that it's not a perfect storm and every single gate allows a lie through.
Yeah, the bigger challenges that I've... Go ahead, Jim.
The thing Anthropic did, wasn't that, and I forget what the term they used was, they had some fancy term of art for it. It was like incremental improvement or something like that, where you would tell the model to, improve yourself as you go with each generation. What's the term for that? I can't remember right now.
I don't remember, but I implemented it almost immediately after I heard it.
Nice.
And so I've got like I usually would do. I have given unique names to steps in my application. So I've gone with a Scooby-Doo theme, and I have Shaggy being the improver. So it is constantly, every hour it fires off and it looks at my technical debt list and my unfinished and improvement list. So I'm keeping 3 MD files that I have AI write to. So when it implements something and it goes, hey, I could do this better if A, B, and C, it doesn't attempt to do that. It's dictating, I've dictated that you write to one of these files if you see an improvement. And then when Shaggy fires up, it looks through the improvement and it looks at the one that it feels it can do in the least amount of code, and it attacks that. And I get about 12 out of 24 hits a day where it actually implements something that's worthwhile, or actually gets through to the implementation phase, because I also have some gates where it can gracefully fail if it doesn't feel that it's improving the application.
So you're doing GitLab issues locally?
Pretty much, yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
I asked this question to Mike Cannon Brooks, the CEO of Atlassian. I told him, where do you see Atlassian going in the next 5 years? And he goes, are you freaking kidding me? I'm just trying to make it to next week.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm just trying to make it to next week. So what I want to ask you guys, what skill or what area do you think a DevOps person should be focusing between now and the end of the year? So we're not even making this next 6 months. Between now and the end of 2026, what area should we be focusing on? Where are you focusing on? What are you guys doing for your research?
I had always been aiming at the jack of all trades, and trying to be the most useful for my customers. I think that is changing. I'm not exactly, I'm not 100% sure in my prediction here, but I'm 70 or so % sure that it's in a specialty. Find a specialty that AI is not going to take over, either because it's too difficult for AI to take over, or it's not going to make an AI company money to take over. And right now, I see that in like things that include a lot of storage, like a binary repository, that would lead us to our friends over at JFrog, where I guess a non-sponsored commercial for their conference next week. But I see being an expert in understanding storage and maintaining binaries and images of things being kind of outside AI's realm of influence today. Will it be in a year or two from now? It's hard to say. But something being an expert in project management, I don't think that has longevity anymore. Being an expert in version control, I don't think that has a longevity anymore. That's where I base most of my career, is version control systems. I just don't think that the minutia of version control tools and branching and releases really holds merit in an AI-only world. That being said, a lot of companies move so slow that we're probably 5 to 10 years out from those type of customers moving. There's still a demand for Ada developers, or what's the other one for mainframes? I can't think.
Fortran.
No, not Fortran.
COBOL.
COBOL,
COBOL,
yes.
yeah, COBOL,
Yeah.
COBOL, yeah.
There's still a demand for COBOL people out there, but mainly because
Oh, yeah.
no one wants to learn it, and the people that do know it are retired or dead.
So if you want a long career in DevOps, go learn something old. Is that the tip?
go learn something that has a uninterested fan base that's difficult and it is not sexy, and
Yeah,
then you have a long career.
Like a banking system. Like what was it, Southwest, when there was a 0-day attack that took down a lot of companies like 2 or 3 years ago, and Southwest, because they're still running like Windows Server 2000.
Oh yeah, that was
God, I thought it was like Windows 98 or something.
Yeah.
It was SolarWinds, and SolarWinds took out anybody with a modern Windows operating system. But
right, so go learn Windows 98. You're fine, and you can go work at
Unfortunately, they would now be vulnerable to that type of attack because they did upgrade everything after that was. It was an embarrassment.
Bank of America is still probably running.
Well,
there's 64.
There's a lot of companies out there that still rely on mainframes. Typically,
Mhm.
insurance companies and your banking companies still have a lot of mainframes behind the scenes. And there's not a lot of people that want to be in the mainframe development world. So that's a place where there's not a lot of new talent. Do mainframes survive the AI revolution? I'm not so sure they do. I think it makes it easier to move off of a mainframe to another architecture because of AI. You're not doing all the heavy lifting and shifting manually or with a human or a set of consultants. You can do that all with AI.
So,
right. Yeah, Jim, your take, and then we can wrap it up.
Okay, so I mean, if you're a junior IT person and you want something to do for the next 6 months to advance your career, well, first of all, run. But if that's not persuasive,
you've been warned.
Yeah, you've been warned, exactly. Creativity is a muscle. I mean, not literally, but you know what I mean. Creativity is a skill that you can exercise to improve and develop your creativity. IT people aren't necessarily known for their creativity, and I think that's a shame, because you need to be able to think in a creative way in order to understand a problem where you don't have all the information available to you.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people struggle with that, and they don't understand how you can just pull what turns out to be the correct solution out of thin air when, well, you didn't. One, this is the 6th solution that I've tried to experiment with, and it turned out to be right.
Mm-hmm.
But I only thought of it because, one, I have a decent background in a broad, jack of all trades, like Sean says, in a broad swath of knowledge, but I'm not real deep, and not as deep as a specialist is. But I've thought about how to develop a creativity in that way. And I think AI is a fantastic tool for that, because it allows you to do creative things without being burdened by some of the minutiae of implementation like we used to be. If I want to write something, I gave up on developing web front ends a long time, 20 years ago, because it was such a moving target. And now with AI, it can do all my React stuff for me. And I just kind of prompt it and I say, I don't like that box over there. Move that box and change the color of that and make this a graph and change the layout.
4 hours to
we're coming full circle to the beginning of this conversation, because I had mentioned that I would love to take these C++ books and see how much is it still relevant. But I kind of be curious, can I teach myself C++ faster than I can go through that book?
I think you could.
I'm sure you can. Modern C++ has come a long way.
Yeah.
And there are modern idioms.
This is still not too old.
Yeah, it is. Modern C++ idioms improve coding style, they improve coding performance, they improve reliability, and they move things to compile time warnings that used to be runtime errors, right? And those books belong in a museum. And I have
my office is
one of my very good friends is a C++ trainer. Hi, Jason. he's made a career out of keeping up with the latest and greatest in C++, and is able to make a career out of teaching it to other people.
Nice.
Well,
So
going back
it
to
moves
one
quickly.
thing you said, Jim, with the, if you going to be creative in IT, most IT people aren't creative. I would say most IT people started out creative, and it got beat out of them by the companies that they work for.
That's
Amen to that.
But I don't think you enter into software development without a creative spark. But that spark is quickly killed at any organization that you join, or majority of organizations out there.
To that point, though, a lot of companies they call them different things, but they do hackathons where they encourage their developers to do those creative things and to look outside the box.
Well, that is kind of a newer phenomenon, though.
It is.
It
but I'm glad to see it.
I am too.
Yeah. And people come up with some really stupid ideas, and I'm glad to see that too. Because hey, it's an idea, and you put something together, and right on.
Entertaining,
Better than keeping it in your head.
We don't need to be able to do a failover from one AWS region to another using Alexa. Maybe that's a step too far.
Yeah.
But maybe it's not. I mean, who am I to say? It didn't get implemented, but it was certainly a hackathon idea. I think it was one of the winners. So.
And on that note, folks, if you need any help with your DevOps needs, there's a link down below to contact release team. Thank you so much for watching, and we're going to be back next week with you all to continue the conversation on DevOps, because it's never going to be over, hopefully. Yeah, if you need any help with any of your DevOps, GitLab, GitHubs, Atlassian stuff, JFrog. It's all down below. Contact release team, and somebody on the team is more than happy to jump on a call.
You're going to be in New York City next week. Look up Alex and I. We'll be at the JFrog conference.
Yeah, we'll be at JFrog. Bye, everybody.
All right. Until next time.